Hello, welcome to the relaunch of the Living in Partnership with Spirit show. My name is Ingrid Turner, your host. And I'm just going to do a little bit text for here. I'm using a brand new tool to broadcast live into our Living in Partnership with Spirit Facebook group, our community. So please forgive me if I do a little stops and starts as I learn this new tool. We're also broadcasting live over Blog Talk Radio, where we've always been. So if you're listening in, so glad to have you here. And if you're watching us on in our community, I'm really glad to be here with you and happy to have you interacting with us. So any questions that you have throughout the show, what we're talking about, please leave a comment. Now, I will tell you that on the live broadcast, we have a 20-second delay between what I'm saying to you here and then what you're hearing on the other end. So if I don't get to your comment right away, be patient with me. I will set aside some time to address any questions or comments or interactions. I'm just so thrilled to be here with you. Okay, so today with the relaunch of the Living in Partnership with Spirit show, let me give you a little intro in case you don't know me. My name is Ingrid Turner. I am your ever grateful host. I'm so happy to be here today with you. I'm a spiritual medium. So what does that mean? That means I use the modalities of psychic and mediumship to express the divine. It's what it's all about. It's all about bringing through spirit and bringing through the divine and helping us all live in partnership with spirit. So that's what I do. You can learn more about me on my website. It is ingridhturner.com. That's INGRIDH. Don't forget the H in the middle. Turner, TURNER.com. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio or listening to one of the archives, I encourage you to join our community where you can, once again, interact with us live on this show. You can meet other healers and teachers and seekers and channels of all varieties who are here to help and assist you. It's a wonderful support place for your spiritual expansion in your spiritual life. Whatever you're going through, this is a place where you can really show up and get a lot of support and give a lot of support where that feels appropriate to you as well. But of course, there's never any pressure. It's Living in Partnership with Spirit, same name as the show. So if you're listening online, you just post that into Facebook search and that'll pop right up for you. We would so love to have you. So I want to give a very special thank you to our very first supporter. Okay, we have somebody coming in supporting our show, and I'm going to share a little visual with you here. This company is called Listening to Smile, and it's run by my dear friend Ian Morris. Ian is an incredibly gifted creator. He's a musician. He's a poet. He's amazing. And he's created this business, this company called Listening to Smile, and it's frequency-minded music. So it's healing music is what it is. Now, this is two-pronged, what I've sort of dug around and looking for and what I want to share with you about Listening to Smile. First of all, he's giving you 10% off any track that you purchase from his website. They average like $10 or $12 if you use the code Ingrid Turner, and that's right there on your screen. If you're in the if you're viewing the broadcast, check that out. If you're viewing the if you're listening to the audio, the Listening to Smile website is listeningtosmile.com. Very easy, just listening to your smile. The second part of this is the join the team. So if you resonate with frequency, music, sound healing, getting your vibes up through the sound, through the cosmic sound, you have an opportunity, if you partner up with Ian and his business Listening to Smile, to help spread the word. He gives you everything you need kind of in a box to be successful as a sound healer, as a frequency meditation practitioner. And you can go on his website and you can check it out if this is something, if you want to get into spiritual work, this is an easy way to do it. The format is already there. There's the form. You just, open the box and go. So you can learn a lot that way, and you can connect with a really wonderful human who I heartily recommend. He's really an amazing soul. And then get going, get cruising. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today once again. I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to bring on our spiritual messenger for the day. His name is Yale Bowman, and I'll talk about him more a little bit down the line. But I wanted to come on and talk to you about a topic that feels really important in our spiritual world and our spiritual community. And the topic is our desire. And the reason I think this is so important is I grew up in a very spiritual household, but it was also a very hierarchy kind of place. My father was he homeschooled my brothers and I, and he was a Vietnam veteran. So he was very militant. You know, he had sort of his own stuff and his own trauma, but he was also a very spiritual being and very alternative. And so he was really important to him to give his children a spiritual foundation. And so I have but because he was so militant and very sort of structured, I got a lot of information that today feels like I have more information since I've connected directly sort of with the divine and with my guide and spirit and gotten more about this. And one of the things that I learned when I was young is desire is evil. We shouldn't have any desire. If you have desire, you're not a spiritual person, or you're not in your highest spiritual self. Well, here's what I've discovered, what I've learned about desire, having grown up feeling guilty about my desires, feeling like I ought to not have them. What I feel now is a little bit different. So our desires, it's true, our desires do limit what is possible for us. And what that means is the desire is it's like a signpost pointing us in the direction that we need to go in order to fulfill our purpose here, to express our essence and to turn around and serve with our greatest gifts. The desire is not the destination point. If you continue to treat your desire as the destination point, you are perpetually unfulfilled, chasing signpost after signpost, desire after desire. And when you get to the signpost that you saw in the distance, you're like, this is just a signpost. This doesn't give me anything. This doesn't fulfill me. And Spirit whispers, your desire is just the pointer. Your desire is pointing you to the feeling that that your spirit is asking for. And so, you want the red sports car. Well, take a step back from that form, the desire, and feel into what is that? What do I think that is going to provide me in terms of my feeling? And that's what the desire is having you look for, is having you connect with it. So, is desire evil? No, desire is really part of our desires are the creative force that make our world real, that make our world physical and tangible. And I'll tell you another funny story. I was at a kirtan, which is a devotional chanting ceremony. And I love these. I mean, when you get into a room full of people singing to the divine and getting devotional like that, it's an amazing atmosphere. And the person who was leading the kirtan would pause and he would tell a story. Now, kirtans are from the Hindu religion. So the stories are Hindu, from the Hindu mythology. And he told the story about the Lord Shiva, who's the destroyer of our delusions. The Lord Shiva lost his wife Parvati. And in his grief, he went into a state of meditation and a state of stillness. And he became so still and so calm that he had no desire. And because he had no desire, the world stopped spinning. Creation started to fall to pieces. So the other gods were frantically trying to figure out how to bring him out of his stillness and meditative state and give him the desire so that he would start moving. And what that would do is that would get the world spinning again, and that would get the world moving again, that kind of perpetual motion happening. And they tried every which way, all kinds of different things. And finally, they understood that Shiva has a lusty appetite, right? He likes women and beauty. And so they sent one of the gods in disguise as a beautiful woman and to tempt him out of his meditative state. And that was what worked. Shiva looked at her and felt the desire start to turn inside him. And so he jumped out of his meditation and went chasing on after her. Now, what was entertaining to me was the person who was leading this kirtan said, what this story illustrates for us is that only the desire for enlightenment is what makes the world go round. And I went, I don't see it that way. My understanding of that is it's our desire for things in the material world that make our world go round. And without it, we stop spinning, we stop creating, we stop the momentum. And this is true on an individual level, it's true on a global level, on a universal level even. Our universe is only one piece of the huge, vast creation. And in our particular little corner of it, and I don't know if this is true for all of creation, but in ours, it's desire our desires that create that energy, that create that momentum. So is desire evil? No, but desire becomes counterproductive when we believe that the desire is the end result, is the end game, that's what is going to give us what we want, because it's never the desire. It's only pointing you in the direction. And as you dig deeper and move forward, not chasing desire for desire's sake, but following your impulses, following the desire to travel, following the desire to, speak with that person, or following the desire to buy whatever it is that we want, understanding that our desire is our impulse driving us forward and moving us forward towards our destiny. And desire starts to work that way for us when we let go of the form and hearken back to the feeling. All right, hearken back to, sorry, let me just pause for a second. So we tend to jump from feeling to form very quickly, and we mistake our desire for our feelings. But that's not the case. The desire is something separate entirely. What we want is something separate entirely from how we want to feel. Oh, perfect. It's 11:11. So that means that I'm going to bring on our very special guest, Yale Bowman.
I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for having me on, Ingrid.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. It is so my pleasure to have you on. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that you are here with us. You're such a bright, shining soul. You're a medium, you're a healer, you're a shaman, and you're so much more than that. Getting to know you is an incredible process, because your layers just keep going deeper, 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 deeper. And it's like, they're all different colors is kind of how I see them. They just go down and down. So I'm going to give you a second just to talk about, tell us what you're going to talk about today. Gives a little bit of a clip, and then I will spotlight you.
Okay, yeah. I think it fits really well with what you're talking about, where you're talking about desire and what is that. And my focus is on emotions as awareness. And then, so how do you analyze your emotions from an objective space? And what is the benefit of doing that? What are emotions trying to tell us? What are they trying to draw our attention to spiritually, the physical world? Really, there's no separation between those two. So how can you improve your life and your existence? How can you reduce the level of suffering you experience as a human being, with a spiritual being kind of shoved into that body in the constraints of this world? And then I'm going to go a little bit into heart-based living, which I think ties into that, and especially in finding your path and trying to stay kind of keep that momentum that we kind of like to keep when we follow our heart and our intuition. And so what does that mean for personal health and personal development? What does that mean for your intuitive abilities? And I'm going to kind of just try to tie all that together into one space.
Okay, awesome. Yale, the stage is yours. Thank you so much.
So I want to start with emotions as awareness. So with emotions, I like one quote I like. It's from actually a Dorian Virtue deck, the Archangel Oracle. Stuck with me for a few years, and it's your reoccurring thoughts and emotions are, answered prayers or something like that, or drawing your awareness to things is more what the gist of it is. And so I read that a few years ago, and it's really stuck with me. And I think through my own experience, I found that that's really true in a way, where what are you continuously feeling? What are trying to tell you? What are our minds trying to tell us? So reoccurring emotions, or even just singular emotions, are drawing our awareness to what's happening around us and how we should deal with it. So there's a few different ways that happens. One is when the emotions arise, where's our mindset in regard to what's happening? Is it telling us that we need to be more accepting of it? Is it telling us that we need to change our approach for what's happening? Is it trying to tell us to set boundaries or express ourselves? A lot of emotions come up because of actions we need to take, or ways that we're viewing things needing to be adjusted, which kind of relates to expectation. So where are you at in regard to where you want to be? And that kind of relates to what Ingrid's talking about with desire, in a way where, again, just about drawing your attention. So it's saying, okay, you want to be here, but maybe you're here for now. What can you adjust in your approach and your way of thinking that makes this more doable? So sometimes, if let's use anger, for example. Anger comes up in a lot of ways. It can come up big time when people don't communicate properly. It can also come up when we're not setting proper boundaries, especially more empathic people, or people who are overwhelmed energetically. Sometimes the anger comes up because it's asking you to voice yourself. Sadness, that's another really common emotion that's really easy to identify with. What is sadness telling you? It's usually telling us that we need to feel something and understand it, and that we need to just come to terms with the circumstance, no matter how bad it is, because the level of acceptance kind of takes place when we get over that ego reaction to these emotions, which are, I need to do this, or this isn't what I was, what I was thinking would happen, or this isn't what's ideal for me. And then we can get into the real course of action, which is, how do I solve it? So feeling the sadness, feeling the anger, and then that's where objectivity ties in, which is, okay, I understand I'm having an emotion. I understand that it's a reaction to something in my life or my environment or the people around me. Now I'm taking it further. I'm stepping back without totally detaching and losing myself. And I'm looking at this from a bird's eye view. And I'm asking myself, how do I adjust my approach, my mindset, what I'm doing in these relationships, what I'm doing in these environments to better achieve my goal? So if your goal, sometimes it can relate to just going about it the wrong way, and we get so wrapped up in it we don't realize it. Other times we need a really radical change or a different approach, but the objectivity in viewing the emotions that are reoccurring or occurring as a kind of sign of awareness, it's a good way to tie into where's your course of action. A lot of times when we're feeling emotion, we're feeling kind of helpless, or sometimes very helpless. So it's important to know that, okay, we do need to feel it, but we need to feel it because it's telling us something. We're not feeling it because we're meant to feel it and suffer from it. We're meant to feel it, and like a lot of people will say, myself included, I use this a lot, let it move through you. And then with that moving through you, finding some kind of understanding you can base your next step on. So going from a place of helplessness to empowerment. And really, when I do readings with people and I work with people, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's a financial situation, an emotional situation, a relationship, something very material world related, I want to help you find your personal power. So where is your impact? Where is your next course of action? What are your skills you're not using? And what maybe are you missing that your emotions, your environments are trying to tell you that you're just not seeing because you're too far in it? So objectivity is the key, but also just the awareness that it's not about just how you're feeling and what's happening. It's about, okay, what am I being drawn to do next? And usually it requires kind of getting out of the mindset where you're thinking solely of what's happening to you and more thinking about what can you produce as a result? What makes this experience a springboard into another experience, into bettering where you are in your life? So with that, positive and negative experiences. And I actually wrote a post on this today that I kind of just brought through last minute, just kind of while I was wrapping up my morning. It relates to, well, there is no good and bad. So there's positive and negative. So with the positive, your energy is flowing and you're finding yourself, appreciating a lot of things in your life because it's easier, because you're able to utilize what you've gained so far. But then the negative experience comes in. Sometimes you're on cloud nine and you get hit by it. Sometimes it's a gradual decline, but wherever it comes in, that's where the awareness comes in. Okay, so you've grown this far. You may just stay at that point if nothing comes to shake it up. You may not do it intrinsically because you're feeling the flow, but something in your higher self is aware that you need development in the future, even if you aren't now. So the negative experience can roll in at that point to help us do some groundwork that we may not even know we're doing, because we don't have the foresight sometimes. And whether we're mediums, whether we're mystics, whether we're channels, sometimes we even don't have this foresight because we only get so much. So the negative experience is about deepening your roots so you can grow higher, so you can flourish more, so you can produce more in your life. So, looking at it not as good and bad as well, but as a positive and negative experience. So with two polarities like that, we're being pulled one way or another, and slowly as we balance these energies, we're growing and expanding in consciousness and in impact and in a level of sustainability and things like that. But we can't have the growth without the root work, which is deeper awareness, deeper understanding. And so our emotions, our negative experiences, things that draw awareness really play into that. Now moving on into what I call heart-based living, which I feel is the best way I've determined to figure out, okay, I'm on this path that I've somehow managed to kind of carve out in this crazy world. Somehow, just for me, there's this spiritual path that's not quite like anyone else's, and it relates to the material world. And it also is based in the material world. So how do I know where to go? How do I know what to do? How do I know what's right for me? How do I know who's right for me and what is wrong for me, who is wrong for me? Those are all, it's hard to deal with that in a logical mind because it's self-defeating. So you can argue with yourself on one side and you can argue with yourself on another. And a lot of times I've found that people, myself included, will come to this stalemate where it really could be either way. It could be that it's about learning and understanding, or it could be that it's about, self-preservation. And sometimes you can build an argument that has you confused whether you should stay or go, whether you should, it kind of builds a paradox. So things like stay or go, things like, should I take a leap or should I stay where I'm at? Sometimes when it comes to jobs or relationships or, expanding and growing, we're not sure which opportunities to take. And so we end up just kind of either staying in place or going with things that we need to explore to find that they're the wrong thing. So with heart-based living, I found in my own experience resulted in me really just listening to what is my body trying to tell me? What is my heart and soul trying to tell me? What feeds those things and nourishes them? For me, it took a multifaceted approach. For one, it brought me into a career place after a debilitating illness, and it allowed me to heal from a debilitating illness. So after 6 years of going to doctors, and then longer throughout childhood as well, it wasn't until I listened to my own body to figure out what would heal it, what dietary changes, what medicines felt good or wrong for me. It works for that, but it also works for what choices. So how should I make money? How should who should I have in my social circle? You'll find that a lot of times, if you're asking yourself, should I be in this relationship? Should I take this job? Is this opportunity good for me? A lot of times we know deep down, but we just may not be willing to hear the answer because it may either one, ask us to take a big risk on ourselves and trust ourselves, or two, it may just not line up with what we logically feel like is ideal. So getting back to the heart-based living aspect of it, it's really about trusting yourself and checking in that soul space and asking, does this resonate with me? And not, does it sound like it could be good for me? Does it sound like I could, make gains on it? Just does this resonate with me? So it works for anything. It's for personal health. It works for, self-development. It works for, making mundane decisions. But you got to check into that soul space and that heart space and kind of find where you're drawn. Usually if you ask yourself a yes or no question, you'll probably align more with one answer or the other. And it may take a little bit of meditating before you come to an answer. Sometimes if it's very complicated or there's a lot at stake, but it's about just trusting yourself. So I'll use myself as an example. When I began trusting myself, it meant coming out of what I call the psychic closet. It meant outing myself as an energy worker, as someone who's done these things for a long time. Although I've been with a business for, about 3-4 years online. And at first it was a little more hush-hush. I didn't even put my name involved in it. It was about trusting my intuition to get out in that space, put myself out there in ways that I didn't ever dream would be possible. So that related to my own self-development, in that it ended up being a very healing process. So when we trust our heart and we follow the relationships, the jobs, the crazy whims that our soul kind of inspires us with, the more we trust it, the more we're given, and the more we're able to provide and kind of heal through that process. A lot of where we end up is a result of what we've repressed wanting to do. So again, using myself as an example, I repressed wanting to express interest and be involved in kind of the more spiritual aspects of life because it wasn't as accepted where I was growing up. I find a lot of people I work with repress different aspects related to that as well. Also repressing knowing that certain people or environments are bad for them and continuing to go on, or that certain health habits or certain daily structures aren't good for them. And so it's kind of just coming to terms with listening to what we need, and it works for things we're already doing, and it also works for the things that we're trying to decide if we should or shouldn't participate in. That heart space relates a lot to intuition. And so I'll kind of bring it to a close before I take any questions. If there are any rolling in, I haven't checked our feed. But with intuition, the heart space really plays in, because when you're giving a reading or when you're trying to decide something for yourself, the answers are really intrinsic, but it takes so much trust. And I find that the first several years, I've been reading tarot and cards and doing psychic reading for about 10 years now. And I found that first you're holding back. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to bring up anything that touches a nerve. You don't want to bring up anything that might upset somebody. But when you go into it a year, a few years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you realize all the things you want to avoid saying, that your heart says, this is where the healing is. This is what this person needs to hear. This is what we need to address. You find that those make the most impactful readings and the most impactful healing conversations, is to bring up the things that you in your heart know they don't want to hear, but also know that are very important. So that works for when we deal with ourselves, and it works for when we deal with others. And when it comes to our own egos and our personal space, sometimes it means swallowing some hard truths and doing some hard self-work as a result. But when you're trying to provide intuition on a situation or with a person, sometimes it's about hearing what you don't want to hear and saying what you don't want to say and relaying it. And just for some examples, giving readings in the past, I found certain things like child abuse, certain things like trouble in the home growing up, certain things like seeing toxic relationships and needing to be very upfront about them. Those are just 3 examples of serious and difficult to talk about things that when they are brought up, draw attention, usually in a positive way. The heart space doesn't draw up information that isn't usable or that will cause chaos, I've found. So if you do get it and it's not to share, usually it's kind of just a knowingness, like, okay, this is for me. But a lot of what we need intuitively is just about trusting ourselves. And we always say, trust your intuition, trust your intuition. But it goes deeper in that, because it becomes a relationship with yourself, where you can really create that connection, which is, there's not much information that is outside of your reach. So as we work with ourselves in that intuitive space and trusting it, it gets stronger and stronger and deeper and deeper. And eventually, right away, you don't have to get involved in the situation at first to let it play out. You'll know, okay, I'm just going to listen to my heart. It doesn't resonate with me and I'm going to skip it. Or this is right and I'm just going to go for it, even though it feels like it defies all logic, even though it feels like other people around me may not approve of it, or that society kind of goes against it. I'm going to go for it. And we'll find those things, even though they feel like they defy our logic, they really work out. I like to say that the logic mind would love to rule the heart space, but it just doesn't have the depth. It doesn't have the deep knowingness that the heart space has. The heart space is rightfully the ruler, and then the logic space can check that and make sure, okay, am I in my sound mind? Am I going to go do something crazy? Usually you won't find that, but you do have that logic to back you up and that sound mind to back you up. But it's about sometimes doing things that are atypical. It's about doing things that are radical. It's about doing things that are where we're willing to invest in ourselves, and about doing things where we're willing to break up patterns and be an uncomfortable change for growth. And so the heart space is a great place to heal, because 1, it clears our energy to follow those desires, like as Ingrid said, positive desires. And it allows us to create faith in ourselves and our universe, where I can go where I feel drawn. I can go with what feels right to me. And I can not worry about what other people say, and it will work out. And I can not worry about what society may think. It will work out. I can not worry about whether this sounds like the decent approach. A lot of times we go with things that sound like a reasonable approach, but it's another form of the same thing. So that radical change and that kind of faithful living can only be accessed through asking your heart and soul what is right for you.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that message. You're right. It did tie in beautifully to what my topic was. And I felt like it expanded so fully. It really fully expanded what I was trying to get across, really talk about that heart-centered. And, you're right desire, the desire that feeds us. And so thank you so much for that. Jamie piped in with a question. How do you know you're in your heart space and out of your head?
You're not thinking. There is no thinking in the heart space. The heart space knows in immediate real time. If you're thinking, you're questioning. So I hope that makes sense. But so the decisions we're usually most reluctant to make, a lot of times they roll back around. I need to voice myself. I need to pursue this. I'm drawn to this. I'm drawn to that. We stuff it down because we're worried about perception and projections. Now, if you're questioning it, usually you're not in your heart space. I want to say you have to identify your heart space before you can jump off on every whim, because whims may feel very similar to that first, but we're talking about something that really resonates deeply, and usually it will create a little bit of fear and reluctance in the meantime. So if you want to do it, and you're just totally ready to do it, that could be heart space guidance, but at the same time that could be impulse. So you kind of got to find the careful balance. But if you're questioning, I'll say it's not in your heart space. Your heart knows it, and then when you approach it and you get ready to make the move, as you start questioning, or if you question it because the idea of it is unsettling, that is not your heart space. You want to find things that just feel right, and usually it's a combination of feeling right and kind of feeling scary at the same time, because subconsciously we know we're about to be super ultimately empowered when we make those decisions. So we may feel a little or a lot of reluctance to do something radical, totally out of the comfort zone. But usually you want to look for fear as an indicator, in my experience and in working with people in these spaces, because fear is a funny thing. It's really true, I believe, we're more afraid than anything of our own empowerment, of our own power, of connecting with the universe on an unseparated level where we have access to all that. And in the heart space, you're basically lining with the universe and producing what you need in the best form right now.
Oh, I'd agree with that, Yale. That's something that I say to people a lot. If there's one thing that human beings are terrified of, it's their own power.
It's petrifying. And I think my life was that struggle. And it wasn't until I really started listening that I was dying, and I had to listen or I wasn't going to live. And that listening saved my life, and it's given me a really deep purpose. So I trust it maybe more than most people would, because everything I do is just very atypical now. But to get to that point, I think it took me so long of backpedaling and forward and back and forward and back. And I still find that, but at least now I know if it's crazy, if my mind says take a day off, take 3 days off, I know that I need to work, but it will work itself out. I do it now. And actually that's an example I'm using because I just use it. I have a baby on the way. And my mind said, got to take a few days off. You've been working 6-7 days a week. I said, it just won't work out. And that's my head going against my heart. My heart says, just take the time. And it works. It does. It requires it's faith living is how I'd like to put it. And not faith as in one faith over another, but faith in yourself and that you're connected and channeling that universal guidance. Always. It's just that we step aside from it to fit what we think sounds good from the immersed view.
Beautifully put, Yale. Beautifully put. Thank you so, so much. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And once more, in case anybody missed it, find you online, relevantreadings.com. Like, this is totally relevant to me, right? And give Yale a like on Facebook. Follow him on Facebook, Relevant Readings on Facebook. He posts all kinds of good stuff. He posts tarot cards of the day. He posts some great articles. He writes poetry. He's an amazing guy to follow. So go give him a like if you would.
Appreciate the time to come here and chat with you and share some messages. So it's been a beautiful experience. I look forward to seeing the next live feed. I'll definitely be watching.
To so much more. Awesome. Thank you so much, Yale. So if you're listening in today for our debut Living in Partnership with Spirit show, tuning into the broadcast in our community, thank you so much. Thank you for bearing with us on the tech support issues. We really hope to minimize that, but that's life. So we'll get better at this. And thank you. I apologize. I'm going to also be cleaning up this video a little bit and putting it on YouTube and the website. And so it'll be archived and a little easier to read. Thank you so much, Amanda. We love you too. Okay, so thank you, Yale, once again, relevantreadings.com. Follow on Facebook, Relevant Readings. If you would like to come on as a spiritual messenger on this show, I would love to hear from you. Spiritual messenger is just what Yale did. You have a message you want to give. This is a great platform to do it. But what I want to do is talk to you first. If I don't know you, let's talk. Let's make sure this is a fit, that we resonate with each other. So you can get in touch with me. You can send me an email, ingrid1030@gmail.com. Or you can send me a Facebook message if you're connected with me or kind of connected with me on Facebook. All right. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank my producer, Tiffany White Sage Woman of Goldylocks Productions. She manages the whole show out on Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio. It's out there on the sphere because of her. And thank you so much, Tiffany, for your patience and your time and your dedication to the Goldylocks Productions company that makes this show so accessible for so many people. But again, if you're listening on the archives and you want to interact with us live, the Living in Partnership with Spirit community is the place to do that. So just pop that into Facebook search, Living in Partnership with Spirit, and join in with us. Okay, so looking forward to tuning in next week, every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you so much. Adores you.